So you got it back. Let's move it.
Oh, right. You got it.
Recording in progress.
All right, 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is call to the public. Anyone here would like to make any public
I can't get my hand up. Can you hear me?
Excuse me? Yeah, go ahead.
This is Scott Dietrich. How you doing?
Hello?
Okay, I couldn't make it tonight, but anyways, on the Val Royal Barn, wedding barn, it's on the agenda. You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Scott. Yes, we can.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I think everything looks good over there to me as a resident. I mean, I don't think there's any complaints over there for them to go ahead with what they want to do. I read all some of the information. It's a nice clean place, they got room. And I think, to let some, they got a cement plant, everybody else down there's doing business full time, so I don't see why you guys should have a problem with it. But I do have one issue. And it's an issue with any business that's going down through there in the sewer district, is I'm just concerned about REUs and how much discharge. An REU for a home is $14,500 or whatever it is. And if you got a business that's potentially pumping hundreds, you got 100 plus people at each event, 200 or 1,000 during the week. I asked Ross earlier today about it, but I'm confused now. Do we get charged by volume of sewage?
It depends, it's use specific. So we have that table in the sewer use and rate ordinance. The township board determines what the appropriate number of REUs is. If it's deemed commercial, typically it's a metered connection where they are billed at a rate.
Yeah. Well, like I said, standard REU is 1 unit. A residential house, I'm basing it on. If you got a business that's pumping a lot more crap into the system, who's paying to process that crap? Is it evenly distributed over the sewer, the people paying the sewer bill?
So the quarterly billing, I'm not positive on how that works. It's my understanding that it's a set rate for residential. And then for commercial, they're billed based on the meter reading.
Yeah, but you told me there was no meter there. Property rate.
I told you that I'm not quite certain. I don't deal with the billing.
My only concern is with a taxpayer citizen like myself, or anybody that's got to pay it in the sewer district if it's fairly done. Because if anybody goes down and throws a business in that's got hundreds of people using it daily, it's not like just one single resident that's paying, for their sewage. I just want to make sure that nobody else is paying for this sewage. That they're profiting from any business that profits. If they're pumping the sewage into that sewage treatment center, they should be paying for that sewage to be processed. The other people in the township should. This question hit my head a long time. It's not just this. I wanted to ask it, and it makes me think because we're getting some more development going, hopefully down in the future. And I want to make sure that we're not paying for it, or the other people on sewer district aren't paying for it. They ought to pay for their fair share, but a business is going to use that a lot more. So thanks for letting me talk.
Thanks, Scott. Anyone else with public comment this time? to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion to support approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, we'll go to approval of the minutes, and there's a lot of minutes here and quite lengthy, and I think what I did, Ross, is I spell checked them and I read majority of them, and as far as like a skim. I didn't see any issues with like, the gist of what the meetings were. I know this one put some time ago now, but please speak up. I'm gonna slowly go through them, but if you guys have seen anything with the minutes on October 12th. I would defer to these. You go through these with the recording, right? So it's probably better than my memory, the video recordings. The commission feels if you want to go through all of them, or you want to do one at a time, please let me know. And 17. Deferred, okay, yeah. I remember this meeting. Any issues with any of the minutes?
I think there was a later version than that, or there should have been, but apparently I've been having email issues where I inserted that one. I think it might have been Steve that supported it, if my memory serves. I do have the adjusted version.
Yeah, I think this was the only item that I saw on these minutes from November 30th was that, Ross.
This was the email from Monday that you're pulling it from?
Yes, yeah. It wasn't, it's a motion.
That's like
You could please go on mute online, please. Thank you. Really an issue was the motion to approve the agenda.
Is that the 11/17 or?
30, November 30th, yeah.
But we made that one from a workshop to a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only part of the minutes, there's missing, who seconded it on the approval. of the
Which I
agenda.
did verify, and I thought
Yeah.
I sent a corrected one, but I'm having some technology issues, I guess.
Let me see. You, in the packet we have tonight, it shows Steve Kraus supported the motion. So,
Yeah, that's the right one that's in the hard packet. That's how I corrected it. And I've got that
Yeah.
digital version of the hard copy. The only items changed were those highlighted items.
right. Anybody have any issues with the minutes? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve and as amended on November 30th.
For all of them?
Yeah, I think we want to do it one at a time.
One at a time, Ross, okay.
Well, I move to approve October 12th. Could I do them if we indicate them individually, or do you want a separate motion and support for each?
separate for each.
Okay.
Move to approve October 12th.
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's approved. Thank you.
I'll move to approve November 17th.
Any support?
I support it.
Yeah, I support it. But, so there's a motion and support to approve the November 17 minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Okay, is there a motion for the November 30th?
I'll move to approve. November 30th.
Sorry. Motion and support. That's amended on the screen, but the copy we have in front of us is correct, so. yeah. Right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, none opposed, so. Is that good, Russ? Are you clear?
Got it.
Okay, moving on, next agenda item. Old business, item number 1, the special land use site plan amendment. Pull up the site plan here. So, for reference, this was previously recommended for approval by the planning commission and has not been sent to the township board for final approval as of yet. The applicant has added items to the site plan that Blake reviewed. So, if you would like, I don't know if you could summarize for us. I think I'm showing the correct item here on the screen.
Sure.
This year. That would be great if you would.
So that the arrow's on now is we're proposing to build a cabin for the groomsmen to get ready in, have an area to hide out in. We currently don't have anywhere for them to get ready, they usually go to a hotel. So we would also like, if they want to spend the night in it, the bride and groom could have one evening in that cabin. The problem that I have is I believe there's a setback to the water. I think your ordinance is 50 feet. And Ross gave me some information about some asking for a variance and the Board of Appeals, but I don't know the process at all. So I'm just going to see if I can get some feedback about, is it possible to build closer to the river? If it's at 50 feet, it pushes it pretty close to where my barn already exists.
That aspect's gonna be solely the zoning board of appeals.
So not,
The planning commission can discuss the use aspect of it, but
Okay.
not the setback itself.
okay. So just the use portion of it then is just an area for the groomsmen to get ready in and spend the night in. And then the grain building is for storage. Currently, when the caterers are getting ready and prepping, they tend to leave a lot of bins and things that are not very pretty outside where it's kind of close to one of our cocktail hour areas. So I just want to have an area that they can store some items in. And then the third thing was for patio, over to the right. They call it a porch. So we wanted to add a deck with a lean-to porch for the caterers to have a flat, dry surface to work on. We're finding when it rains, it tends to get muddy. And that's it.
No.
I've been having
Just
some
forward,
email
yeah.
issues, so I just sent it.
So, this porch and deck here, is the deck existing, the 30 by 30 deck?
No,
No.
that's currently grass.
Grass, and under the porch also is grass?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be
Fantastic.
So this porch and the deck here, does it change the occupancy or the scope of use that you're planning?
No.
You guys have questions? I guess my only thought on this cabin with the deck and then having overnight capability, it changes the scope of the land use. And I think from planning commission perspective, is my opinion, you guys can tell me, but it seems like it would be good to have our planner review it and provide feedback on that. But just my thoughts, thinking out loud here. I don't know if you guys, if you have any other.
They're currently allowed to stay in the inn,
In the inn.
in the house, so it would just be an additional space for them. So they're already permitted to stay overnight, 2 nights in the house. This would be additional building.
Okay, and is this limited to the wedding party, similar to how the inn is?
Yeah, the groomsmen would use that cabin. Oh, maybe, yeah.
Ross, did we get a revised statement of use or no? Okay, so, because that would be, I think, critical.
That would need to be
for
added,
this, so then we could see.
Spreading another structure to it, it complicates things a little bit more. If it's an enclosed structure, as far as the grain bin just for storage use, that's essentially a shed.
Yeah.
The deck is just elevating an area that's already previously used for workers and things of that scope, but
No, I mean specifically to the cabin.
that structure there, well, it does not meet the setback. That's issue number one. Issue number two is we would probably need to have a little bit more detail on layout, is it going to have facilities, et cetera. The other two aspects, I don't see a huge deal with, but as far as the existing recommendation for approval, I would say that the cabin itself may require a little bit of additional review and possibly a public hearing, just based on our ordinance standards. Other two potentially could be considered under a modified recommendation because it really isn't changing too much ultimately, with the exception of we probably want to have them added, or at least noted, in the use statement.
Yeah.
But that could be a.
Yeah, no, to me, those two seem like they're more of what I think in our ordinance categorized as a minor amendment of the entire new building. I don't know, how do you guys have thoughts or questions for that?
I guess I'd like to hear the opinion of our consultant here on this.
So it's tricky to opine on minor versus major because there's stuff that still hasn't been approved yet. So like if this had all been approved and it was adding a storage shed, then that's a little easier to say it's minor. But because there are all these packages of things that are happening that have been added, it takes a little closer look. For special land uses, whenever you expand the use or add on to the use, either you're making it more intense or you're adding onto the structure, it triggers a site plan as part of it. I'd say especially because of the, it seems very minor, but it doesn't distinguish if you have 3 guest rooms and you're adding an extra guest room. It's the same use, but there's more of it, so your ordinance says we want to look at that for special land uses. But because it hasn't been considered by the township board, it can kind of be rolled into this new one, or the new can be rolled into this. Out of abundance of caution, it probably would be best to do a new public hearing with revised statement of use and everything on there. As mentioned, the ZBA is the body to weigh in on the variance, not this body. What else? I think the applicant had asked in an email about the site plan, and your ordinance does say it has to be prepared and stamped by a registered professional, a surveyor, a registered engineer, or architect. So there will be a little bit of work to get it ready for showtime. But for night, it's concept feedback for the applicant.
So you want an architectural drawing of the interior?
The zoning ordinance does.
And then,
So can I propose that we take the cabin, should I just take it off and do this at another time, or that's gonna cost me another $2,500 to apply for? My purpose of trying to do this was to do it all under one open application.
Your application's open currently, so it's really up to the planning commission. If they wanted to move it forward, they potentially could, but based on what we've heard, the cabin aspect seems to be the biggest issue.
Mhm.
I guess the planning commission could potentially modify or do some kind of conditional recommendation if they feel that it's not a major change for the storage and the deck, because they are fairly minor and they would comply with all the other ordinance standards.
Mhm.
And obviously, this is the site plan that we did just get on Monday, but it is a professional engineered site plan. I'm gonna let the planning commission make that decision. It's not my decision to make, but, that they could potentially, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, make a motion for I would say withdraw the previous recommendation, make a new recommendation, and that recommendation would have conditions, one of which would be to remove the cabin. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
yeah,
And then potentially if necessary, amend the use statement to clarify that, this would only be used for storage, this would only be used for work staff preparation or whatever.
Yeah, and the part that I think all of us on the planning commission would need would be the statement of use revised that clearly explains these buildings and their functions, because right now it's verbal, and like this cabin, we don't know, is it used year-round and rented out, or that, so it's hard to, I think that would be wise for us to understand what that is, and the grain bin, obviously, like you're saying, it's gonna be storage and it's an existing structure, is my understanding, right? It is already there? Okay.
Wait, what did you say, it's already there?
Is the grain bin already there, or is that new? Okay, so I didn't know if that picture was what's there, or?
No, that's just an example of
An
what we
example.
would buy,
Okay.
we wait earlier. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Is there an ordinance written for Airbnbs in our township now? Could I rent that out all in the winter time? Did we have Airbnbs?
We don't have a short-term rental ordinance specifically.
Not yet, okay.
So does that mean it's not allowed, or it's not denied?
It's,
Neither.
so,
You can't do it.
yeah, the scheduled use table says, here are the things that are permitted. Anything that's not on there or not similar is not.
And then would technically come in, if you wanted to, you'd have to apply for special land use, correct, Zach, or is that not possible?
It's a bit tricky. So residential use, there's a court case that many, many years ago. So long ago, I don't even remember the parties to it, but essentially established 30 days as residential use of the property. So kind of by default, anything under 30 days is short-term, anything over that is just a regular rental. I was looking through several of the options. Bed and breakfast is a bit tricky with your current standards because it says it has to be in the same building. Motels are not permitted in the zoning district as a special use or permitted use. So as part of the principal building, it's easier because there's an existing path with bed and breakfast, but as detached structure, there's not a current path. Potential to change the zoning ordinance to allow, if you've got little cabins around the property, to have that considered as a bed and breakfast. So there's a bit of lifting for this.
Thanks, Ben.
I think there is a business in our township that has cabins for rent, isn't there? A horse church or something, church or horse farm or something, and they have.
There's a church, but that's a youth camp. It's not a
Yeah.
rent cabin situation, and that's actually, I believe, existing non-conforming, which predates the standards.
If they didn't rent it out for overnight use, would that make it easier to get it through on this application?
Well, it does not meet the setbacks, number one.
Well, but the ZBA has to fix that. That's not all right, right?
So the use, you're saying?
They would need to seek the variance before the planning commission should make a recommendation on it. We would want to have that already.
So as long as someone gets married at the Airbnb, then it's okay?
Well, per the special land use conditions, this is a unique special land use.
I believe that the zoning ordinance looks at that as a bed and breakfast. And your language in here says a bed and breakfast is in the principal building. And so that's the complicating, someone sleeping in there overnight.
I have another question about the cabin. What if we made it a tree house? And if it's in the air, does it matter where it is in the air as far as being closer to the water? Same setback applies?
And for the applicant and the members in the audience, you're at the front edge of new uses and new ideas out there, and it's very common. When you're the first through, you get the buzzsaw. So it's not necessarily that the township or the planning commission isn't interested, it just takes a while to
Right.
get the
No, I
regulatory
get that, I
framework.
appreciate that, they did that for the barn wedding venue in general. Okay, so I don't know if I should just take the cabin completely off and just move forward with the deck and the grain bin to simplify it? Because it's not anything I want to build now, it was just in an effort to save $2,500 to reapply.
I think we could do, if you took that off, we could do it as a minor change, right? 'Cause there's, to me, they're minor.
My
The
opinion-
deck and the sidewalk.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would agree.
But, yeah, and just as long as they're indicated on the use statement, what they're gonna be used for. You're right, that's the
Right.
part we don't have now, but
Right,
I agree, John.
So the modified recommendation would be to remove the cabin, make note of the uses allowed in the grain bin and the deck, and just,
Yeah,
so revise the site plan to remove cabin, amend use statement to include deck and grain bin. Is that what I'm-
Yep.
Okay. So I think you'd want to withdraw your previous motion and make a new motion to recommend township board approval if that's what you want to do.
Could we amend the recommendation? As opposed to, because I don't remember what the, what the previous, I mean, I don't know, detailed it was, but if we just amended it to add these two, the grain bin and the deck as minor additions.
Yeah, I think that would be feasible. I can actually bring up the previous recommendation, because that is in the minutes, I just don't recall exactly which meeting. I want to say,
The ones we just did, I thought.
was that the September?
And then,
Another bit like the words of that.
August 20.
also was before these.
Yeah. So that would have been the August 18th, 2021 meeting, and the recommendation was to recommend conditional approval of the site plan and special land use amendment with conditions that the site plan has the dumpster locations and has a stamp. And the site plan has the same notes to be consistent with the use statement, and that they require an annual report. Do we have a dumpster on here?
I forget which location. Right here, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I recall previously all the conditions were met as far as the site plan. We did have the hard copy of the, with the engineer stamp and seal.
Yeah.
So the only things that's changed is the grain bin, deck, and cabin on this version. So if you were amending the motion, you could just take out the dumpster location and add removal of the cabin from the site plan and addition of description for grain bin and deck in the use statement. And then obviously, once the new site plan was generated, removing that, then I would send it to you. You would need to verify that, yes, this is consistent with the conditional approval, and then I could move forward to the township board. Both the site plan and the use statement.
Would you be able to have a revised site plan by our workshop meeting next week, or is that?
I think so. Yeah, he usually turns around in a couple days.
Not saying we can't move on it right now, I'm just saying it might be good, and we also review it and.
Yeah, we would need to convert
See
that
it.
to a regular meeting and verify that we have a quorum and publish it as a regular meeting in order for that to work.
Okay.
Otherwise, it could potentially be a motion for conditional approval. And then the conditions could just be reviewed, you know, once we receive them outside of a regular meeting, but
Yeah.
before it goes to the board.
Okay.
Not saying that it's not possible for the workshop to be converted. It will take some effort, and there's no guarantee that it can't happen.
Yeah.
You know, until we verify those things. And I also won't be here for the workshop.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
mean, that being the case, I think we should just wait till the next meeting, if there's that many things that would have to happen in order for that to work. We're not trying to delay you guys, but
Well, no, there are the two options. The one option is if they are willing to remove the cabin and you believe that it's acceptable to just add on the deck and the grain bin, you can make a motion right now for a conditional recommendation. The conditions being remove that cabin and then make note of the grain bin and the deck in the use statement. If that were the case, then they would just need to basically email me the revised use statement and the revised site plan. I would send it to you to verify that, yes, those conditions have been fulfilled, or no, they have not. And if they have been, then we can send it to the board.
so administratively, okay, so they don't need another meeting then.
Not necessarily, but it depends on what you decide.
If you agree to remove the cabin,
Correct.
then I would move that we conditionally recommend it for approval, removing the cabin and adding the grain bin and the deck for the, I guess the caterers or whatever that would be.
Porch with the lean-to roof, right?
Yes.
So conditional favorable recommendation with those conditions.
And add those to the notes, right? Is that what we also mentioned?
To
the use statement.
recommendation.
Clear on that, Ross, just wanna make sure
Got it.
that makes sense. So I don't know if you wanna reread it. I don't have a
So
second.
I have a motion for a recommendation of approval conditioned upon removal of the cabin from the site plan and making note of the deck and the grain bin, including the uses of such on the use statement.
Okay, thanks.
So are we amending or
Yeah, amendment.
the previous approval?
The previous recommendation for approval.
Okay. So the motion has got to be to amend the previous approval and add those conditions to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Kurt. Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Support. I'll support it.
Okay, thanks, John. Right, there's a motion to amend the previous recommendation for approval with the contingencies that were listed and the removal of the cabin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passed. Is the applicant clear with what we are requesting? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Foster Storage Condominium Special Land Use. This item will be deferred. In previous meetings, we had requested that our township engineer provide us feedback and a report, which we received this week just before the meeting, but we are going to defer it so we have time to review that, and the applicant also has time to review that and come back with the items we requested in our previous meeting. So we will defer old business item number 2. Move to, unless anybody has objections.
Is there anything that we need to discuss from the Spicer review? I didn't really look it over too closely.
Now, the applicant requested that we defer it to allow them some
Oh,
time
okay.
to prepare.
So we can't talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, you could, but it was the applicant that requested that it be deferred so that they have a chance to come up with either comments, replies to the review, as well as amending the site plan to address the concerns.
Yeah, and I think we could talk about it, John. I made it through about half of the report. I haven't made it through all of it, but, so, I don't know how everyone else feels, but.
I'd like to see their response to.
Okay.
So is this deferred then to the next regular meeting or the workshop meeting?
Well, it depends, well, it doesn't sound like we're gonna be converting the workshop, so it'd be the next regular meeting. But either way, it would work. Next regular meeting would include the workshop if it were to be converted.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next regular meeting.
Kind of depends
be
on how
clear,
their
thanks,
turnaround is too, and if that'll allow for sufficient time to review, which chances are, it probably won't be an adequate time yet for this one.
Right, so the next item on the agenda is Runyon Lake Heights private road improvements. And this item, I think, maybe Ross, if you could summarize, like, based upon our ordinance, where we're at as far as a planning commission, what
So for
we're tasked with at the moment.
Yeah, so for existing non-conforming private roads, there is a provision in the ordinance that allows for modification of the standards if you were to propose something like paving, as long as it is consistent with, it's necessary for improvement, for safety purposes, more or less. I need to bring it up. Unless Zach, you can.
I think I got it up, Ross. But,
So basically, it's an existing non-conforming road that exists today. We do currently allow for standard maintenance and upkeep of that non-conforming road, so it's allowed to exist as is with maintenance as needed, but maintenance does not include paving. Paving would be a separate aspect, which the planning commission does have the option to allow a modification. Just need to find that specific language.
I think I'm in this section.
It's gonna be Article 24 for sure.
I think I have it up on the screen.
There it is.
Twenty-four oh four. Yep,
2404A4.
yep.
That does say private road, that says if you're actually expanding it. I thought there was something, paving specifically.
Is it 2403?
So I think it might be just 24.03, modifications to these design standards shall be considered in recommended for approval or denial by the planning commission.
So,
Because the deviation would be in reference to, let's see, 24.04 D, which is titled repair and maintenance. D2 indicates that replacement of a private road or paving of a previously non-conforming private road shall require bringing the private road into conformance with the requirement of the ordinance. And then we're bouncing back to, yes, we can modify standards. if it's demonstrated that it meets safety and sound engineering. So I can describe previously when this was brought to the table, it was requested that the applicant provides additional information on it,
Yeah.
which if my memory serves was some sort of plans, drawings, written description, just basically additional details describing the purpose of the paving and, specific details that could be reviewed.
Yeah. So as applicant here, I know there was a couple members that, okay, so I don't know who would like to speak, maybe give a summary of what the plan is.
Sure. My name's Brian Helm, and I've been elected to be the road chairman or commissioner of our neighborhood. I've been taking it over, I've lived there 5 years, and the road's in pretty rough shape, so we brought in tons of, literally 15 tons of trains of stone to build it up, level it out, and we're still having severe ice problems in the wintertime. We go down a hill with a pretty big slope, and the UPS guys, the FedEx, the delivery, the Amazons won't go back in our neighborhood. Garbage trucks won't go in because they can't get back out. So we're constantly sanding, and this year was one of the worst ones we've had. We probably sanded it 25 times. We still can't get up and down, so we've had to pull people out, and it's become a big concern of the road itself and the ice. It's just a sheet of ice getting in and out of that road. So we put it above our community, and we've all voted, check into paving, and this goes back about a year. I checked into paving, got all the information, got all of Richard, who's in charge of the quality paving company, bringing it to, and he gave all the specs as far as what we bring it to, as far as, maybe you could speak on how
Of course.
all those things, but we want to get it safe, and everybody voted for it, we all voted yes. We secured our own funds to do the project, so we're not asking for any outside funds, and everybody wants to get it done, so there's the.
This kind of the description here.
Correct.
Okay.
Sure. So gentlemen, it's pretty simple. We did do a core sample. The core sample came back positive. They do have a lot of base there. There is a very, very negative pitch coming from Karma Road. It's like straight down. So there's nothing really we can do as far as pitching it away from there, but we can do a 2% crown. So the roadway we anticipate about 18 to 20 foot wide, but we're going to prep about 22 foot wide to leave a little spillway for it to flow. Halfway down Karma Road where we're stopping, if you look at that little funny drawing I made, you'll see there's a bridge there, and that is the lowest point of the entire private community. And that's where everything flows, and there is a creek there, correct?
Yes.
So that's where we're going to channel most of it, but we are going to do a 2% crown to keep it off the centers. The asphalt is going to provide more traction than gravel or dirt. They do have an awesome base there. We do have to touch it up and regrade, recut. Some areas we do have to add a little bit more base, but I'm very confident in 4 inches of asphalt, 2 lifts, that it would be a great benefit to Brian and his community.
Thank you.
Russ, what's the current standard for depth of asphalt on private roads?
I couldn't find that when I was looking for it. It looks like it refers to Livingston County standard.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't think Livingston County has a standard for private roads, do they?
Not for private, just for.
So I don't know if you could find, I tried to look for that. I spent some time and I couldn't find anything.
Nine times out of 10, gentlemen, it's 4 inches at 2 inch lifts, 2 layers. Some counties could be a little more aggressive. Usually they do concrete at 6 inches, but asphalt at 4 inches is like strong, But then again, each county has different specs, and I'm not an engineer for the county, so.
But in everything in our ordinance is saying if this is going to be a county road, right?
Well, the intent of the private road ordinance is to design it to where it could potentially be
Yes.
converted to a public road, yes.
But this rule.
And that's
That
it.
won't ever happen here.
On that same token, the road commission has made it abundantly clear that they're unwilling to bring on any more private roads.
And that's required by the ordinance, right?
As far as the standard, the design standard.
No, that the county, they need to prove that the county doesn't, they won't take it as a county road.
For a new private road, yes.
Yeah.
This is also a dead-end road, and it's not going anywhere. It's kind of landlocked in, so.
How many houses are off this road or access, use this road?
On that particular road?
Yeah.
Probably 7, maybe?
But it provides access to the entire.
Oh, to the whole neighborhood's 69, I believe, homes, to the whole neighborhood, but that road right there, I think 7 homes are adjacent to it.
Where the paving's gonna occur.
Yeah. There's also a huge dust problem in the summer. All those homes get bombarded with all the traffic and dust, even though we chloride and treatment, it's still, we chloride one day, a week later, we're having dust issues back there.
Would it, let me see, would it be possible to get a sketch? Obviously, maybe it doesn't have to be to this extent, but, I'm just curious, like, to show, hey, this is from edge to edge is 20 feet, and then this, where you have this apron is.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, that I think it would be helpful to see
Sure.
it on this type of a drawing.
Yes, and it's very important, I agree.
So this is gonna go all the way up to Carmer Road?
Correct.
So what is that Carmer Road right now? Is there existing paved approach?
There is like an easement and approach, so
Okay.
we were gonna bump right up to that. So it
Okay.
goes in, I think, 8 or 10 foot into Merrill from Carmer. So we were gonna bump right up to that, and there is asphalt going, I think it's 8 or 10 foot into Merrill right now.
So there's no turnaround on this at all? What happens when you get to the end of the road? You have to back up?
Well, this is a road, there is several legs that go off of this road once you get over the bridge.
Okay,
Our concern was, that's the high traffic area to get to all the legs.
okay.
And that's where all the mailboxes are, and that whole thing becomes
So-
sheet ice.
There's still substantial road here beyond where we're paving, okay?
Right.
That's one thing we should probably have on this, is so we have a good idea when we're looking at this, how much more road is out there that won't be paved.
Yeah, and that's what, thanks, Kurt, that's part of like, where if you redo a sketch or
I
something
can
that
get you
shows
some-
dimensions to
Of course,
show the
dimension in the entire area.
overview.
You got it.
My thoughts on this are that this is a good improvement, and if you have, what did you say, 60 homes back there, and an emergency vehicle crashes going back there or something, it's probably not wise to not fix it. But, I mean, just some part of it, I don't know, just my thinking out loud.
If they're paying for it and it improves safety, I'm 100% for it.
Yes.
Gentlemen, the steep is pretty intense too.
I drove
Coming
back there,
from
yes.
Carver down to the bridge.
I'd just
did.
like to see some dimensions that
Now,
show that they're measured.
Yeah.
Well, we could approve it conditional upon, have Ross administratively handle it, I mean.
Well, you would still need to
Isn't there a
verify.
drawing?
What's that? You still need to verify that the conditions are met, but if that's something that you.
There's a list of conditions to recommend modifications.
Yeah, there's a lot of-
Yeah.
so the issue was drainage, you're saying, the reason you wanted to pave this road. And that was
That's-
basically
well-
because,
We have to be concerned with drainage, but that's not why we're paving the road. We're paving the road because of safety of the water freezes instantly.
so
out there, and it's
the
a sheet
roadway
ice.
was not draining properly.
It doesn't go anywhere with the gravel. It just sucks all that water and moisture in it, and it freezes like an ice rink there.
What about after the bridge?
After the bridge, it's all uphill, and then it flattens all out, and everything's pretty decent. We don't have any ice problems after that's point.
So are you paving just to the bridge,
Yes,
across the bridge, or before?
the bridge is already paved.
So the issue, you're saying the current road, the water's not draining off the road. And now you're gonna,
Well, the water is sucking into all that base, and it becomes a big ice rink on the road.
So the plan is to pave the road.
Yeah,
and
then
to
the
get
water
the
will
water
shed
off the
down the
road.
road,
So
right.
now what are you gonna do with the increased runoff?
There is a major creek where all the water naturally goes during the heavy rains in the summer.
So there's ditches along the road that go
Absolutely.
down to the creek?
Absolutely.
That's-
And then the bridge has spillways of catching the water from all angles.
Okay.
And there, that creek just runs right through there.
So you're gonna maintain the existing ditches
Exactly.
that go to the creek?
Yes.
I would defer details on this to the engineer, but when you go from stone or even limestone to paved, it's gonna increase the volume of runoff. And so township engineers, part of this is probably gonna be interested in how are you gonna manage that extra runoff and make sure the rate going into the creek doesn't go up. So the volume can go up, but it'll have to be managed, so it's at not a faster rate. So as you're preparing your plans, I would get with the township engineer.
I think a simple solution would be to put like stone check dams in those ditches. Especially if the road is a steep grade, you're
Yeah,
gonna
there,
put more water
we're
into
gonna
the
put a
ditch.
riprap type system of rock and stone and fill.
That would be nice to see in the plans, and if we're gonna have the township engineer review this, they're gonna, I mean, it's a really small area, you
Yeah.
know, it's not that big, but you could have erosion concerns, and,
Yeah.
you know, probably like the check dam will slow the water down.
Yeah.
That's,
What was the depth of the core sample that you took?
Oh, we got 14 inches of 21 delay. We didn't go down deeper than 14 inches. 14 inches was our max, but I'm assuming there's some 1x5 or 1x3 underneath there. Most likely there is, but 14 inches is like, wow, you know, it's more than enough. Typically, for a rating of like 80,000 pound of heavy traffic every day, all we need is about 10 inches, sometimes even 12 inches of 21 AA, but we got a great core sample. Yeah, everything seems to be fine. I don't see no issues whatsoever. The pitch is dramatic coming from Carmer. It is majorly dramatic. Where the bridge is the lowest part of the entire thing, but with us over prepping and making like a stone existing on each side, exposed stone, that'll help some of the runoff, and like a 2% crown, a very less visible crown to keep the water off the centers, and that'll help with drainage as well.
Who's going to maintain the road, or who does maintain the road right now?
I'm in charge of it. So we have a company that comes in and K&B road grades it about every 4 weeks roughly.
You might want to include that on there too, so that we understand that who's maintaining the road, and it's going to be maintained by a private contractor, paid for by the residents.
Yeah, that's been going on for years. The money's allocated for the maintenance, the chloride. We bring in stone every month, and it's a constant maintenance.
Yeah.
And that's another advantage of paving it. Now we don't have to maintain it area. We'll have to maintenance the rest of the neighborhood.
Well, it'll
But
help.
that entrance is where all the high traffic's at.
Yeah, it'll help us for the record is to know how it's being done and who's doing it for right now.
Is there a maintenance agreement?
It's up to me to make phone calls when I determine,
Okay, so there's not a recorded,
there's not every 4 weeks a guy's coming, no. It's when we get a
but
lot
no,
of.
maintenance
For your
agreements
association.
amongst the property owners?
Yes.
There is?
Yeah, and yeah, we can get you the minutes on that. It's in the bylaws of how much is allocated that we have to spend. And it's been going on for years and years and years back there.
You were ahead of the curve. There are a lot of these old roads that don't have maintenance agreements, and
They're a mess.
folks are finding they can't get mortgages for them anymore.
Yeah, they're an absolute mess, so, yeah, we've got that, everything's documented. We have meetings every spring and fall, everything's documented, the neighborhood comes and we talk about it. It's in the dues and the minutes, and anytime a home is sold, everything's in there.
Hey Ross, how is this different than running Lake Point? Because isn't that a very narrow private road also?
That is a narrow private road.
that they were able to pave, or how did they get?
That I don't know for certain.
It's paid.
It is
Yeah,
paved. I know it's
They
paved.
tried to pay for it.
Yeah,
I could research it.
it seems like it's an apples to apples thing.
It's a narrower road than ours, and that was paved quite a long time ago.
Yeah, I thought
And it's held up very well.
it seems to, yeah.
Is that something you'd like me to look into?
No, I'm just thinking that from the standpoint of
I can.
of it being consistent with.
I can see if it was done prior to this ordinance being.
It'd be interesting just to see what, if they had to go through a similar process or.
Yep.
So Rich, they gotta come up with like a what, a profile showing the shoulders, is that what you're looking for, John?
No, I just think that the only concern I have is the additional runoff from the paved road. I mean, really, there's not much difference in a compacted paved gravel road to a paved road.
What is the
You're gonna
runoff
get more-
coefficient difference?
Like 0.05. I think it's 0.85 to 0.9, but I'm not certain of that. But, you know, just, you're gonna have additional water in the ditches, they're probably shallow ditches, but it's a steep grade, so then you're gonna be additional runoff and just go right to the stream.
So they need to add some of that riprap type thing you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's like riprap, basically in a pile in the ditch, so the water hits it, slows it down. The water hits the next one, slows it down.
But what we can do is recommend that be approved by the township engineer, I think, right? It would be.
That's what I don't know, I don't know how to do this. I don't wanna make it overcomplicated, it's not a
I'd
very
say-
big area.
No, I don't either.
And up to the pavement section, and all that, that's really up to them, it's their road, they own it, right?
If I can make a comment on the road pavement, it's actually naturally pitched. The water just kind of follows the road right now, and then as it gets down to the bottom, we're gonna actually curb it out of asphalt and pitch it, so the water will have an actual trough to get down.
Yep.
And then once it gets by the bridge, then we're gonna build a rock roof area and take that water away, because I don't wanna put extra water on the bridge. Even though there's 2 spillways on the bridge, we're gonna collect that water before it gets to the bridge.
Yes, and that will help because you would have additional runoff going towards the bridge, and you don't wanna worry about erosion
That's
at
right.
the bridge.
That's right.
Scour, so.
Yeah.
that-
And it's all, the bridge is all curved anyhow, and it collects it all, and it's huge rocks all the way around it in the foundation.
So gentlemen, what do I need to do? What would be my next step? We need more, you would like some dimensions, correct? I can provide that. What else do I need to do on my end?
So are you gonna do all the work, all the construction work, including the riprap and spill?
Not the riprap, we're doing that in our
So-
road bits.
We're
So-
doing the grading, the cutting,
Okay.
the adding base if needed, and the 2 layers of asphalt.
So while you're thinking, I want to just set everyone's mind, here's the paragraph that says modified standard. So the planning commission may recommend approval of modified standard for a non-conforming private road in a particular application where it can be demonstrated that the modified standard meets safety and sound engineering requirements. Modifications to these design standards shall be considered and recommended for approval or denial by the planning commission. The township board shall consider the recommendation of the planning commission and take final action on the request for a modified design standard. The modification, if granted, shall be based on a practical difficulty associated with the request, such as, but not limited to, pre-existing development, natural features and topography, or protection of the health, safety, and welfare of township residents. So think in your mind, when you're making the recommendation to the township board, you should be able to say, we recommend this because of these.
What was that last statement that you said, what section was that in?
24.
It's on page 2411 at the top.
Oh, so you're not 2403?
It's 04.
Okay, I thought it was.
4.
So for the applicant, those are things you need to be able to present to them. Some of them are fuzzy. I might recommend contacting the township engineer and saying, what information do we need to provide on the plan so you can make a recommendation to them?
So what's his recommendation? Goes to them, that's when I can proceed.
Once we get that information turned in, which could be pretty quick, how soon can we get a turnaround? Only because we want to get this before summertime when it gets really expensive to do paving. And we're doing it pre-spring as soon as the frost laws go off is the goal.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off. Ryan, here's another thing to take into consideration. Now that it's cooler, installing asphalt, it cools off faster. So we can get traffic on there like as soon as possible. Versus if it's July or August, some of these homeowners, which I know is not you guys' problem, some of these homeowners may have to wait a minute before they put heavy traffic on this pavement. So that's just another thing to take into consideration why we're here. So I guess Brian's question is how soon can we get this approved? I mean, how, if we get this information to the engineer and he gives a recommendation, when will you guys be able to review and accept or approve or?
Could be as early as the next regular meeting in May. But we would want the plans and information over as soon as possible. If the planning commission recommends that, I can shoot that directly over to the engineer, try to get as much of a rush on as we can, which would allow adequate time for the planning commission to review prior to the next regular meeting.
Zach, I guess I would just a question, not that we have to do this, but would, based on our body and what we are charged with, would making a conditional recommendation based upon the township engineer's consensus or approval, right, would that be okay? Because I don't know if the scope of the project will change based upon his feedback. Obviously, details will change. But,
So
good, like this.
that's there's a struggle of, if you see a site plan, do you want to have everything clean, or can you prove it with a bunch of conditions? And that comfort level is different in this case because there's not an engineered plan and the township engineer hasn't looked at it at all. It would probably be more prudent to wait till the next meeting, and so that the township engineer has touched it and you've got a better sense of, you can say, we recommend these modifications because, and here's how we know it's going to be sound engineering. Some of that has been touched on with the core, but for stormwater drainage, you may want to see there are going to be check dams every X feet instead of just one at the bottom. So there are probably still some things that this body ought to see in order to be able to make a recommendation to back it up.
Thanks for the summary.
So just to kind of recap, what I'm gathering is that you are looking for plans that specifically show, the specific details such as drainage, dimensions, things of that nature, that we could then send to the township engineer for review, and ideally, hopefully, be able to get this prior to the next regular meeting.
Yeah.
Does that kind of sum it up?
That's all I understand.
Yes.
When we say plans, what are we looking for?
Are we looking, are we looking for like a professional engineered plan, or are we looking for like a me plan with dimensions and I can,
We need something better than this, okay?
something?
Yeah, better, but I guess my thought is, don't overcomplicate it for this little.
No, we need something that's gonna show where you're gonna put the riprap in there. We need something to show precisely how wide the road is gonna be. We need something that says precisely, how thick the pavement is gonna be. So, do you need an engineered document? No, but I think you wanna have something so that an engineer could look at it and say, okay, this is reasonable.
Sure.
We wanna make it easy for you.
I appreciate it.
We're not trying to complicate it, but we need something for our records here, okay? Because 8 years from now, somebody may say, well, this road's all falling apart again. Why did the planning commission approve this thing? Okay, well, this way at least we'll have some information pertaining to what standards we looked at, the pictures we had, the documents we looked at. So that's what we need. It's really to protect you guys as well as us.
Sure. So my next step is the engineer. I need to present some information to him, a better plan and some details and some designs with some specs, some exact width and length and stuff like that, and then he will be in touch with you guys, and then we'll know in May, is that correct?
Yeah, the quickest way would be to just submit it to me directly. I can forward it directly to the township engineer, try to get as much of a rush on it as we can. That's gonna be where you want to start.
Okay, great.
I know that Brian has my contact information.
Yeah, I think biggest thing looking for is where are these riprap areas? Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Where are those riprap areas gonna be? And if the township engineer, I guess, says that should be sufficient, I think that's all we're looking for, is just somebody to say that, you know, this looks like it'll work.
Yeah, the other thing we'll need too is the maintenance agreement, a copy of it, so we have something to, for our records.
And I can get in touch with the engineer in advance. We likely will need to require some escrow just to pay for that.
Sure.
The engineer review.
Say that again.
We will likely need to collect some escrow to pay the township engineer as well. So I'll figure that out, you know, hopefully this week for you, as far as how much we'll need to require.
One more question on the drainage. So there's 7 houses along this stretch of the road. Now, and there's ditches on both sides?
That's correct.
So do they have driveway culverts?
No.
No, so,
Most of the water actually stays on the road, and it makes its own little path during the rain.
I get that. So now I'm thinking, now that we're paving it,
Yeah.
the water's gonna be probably going down their driveway. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but.
Yeah, the best way is maybe, well, it's actually comes, well, you might not be able to see it, if I can video it.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Is it supposed to rain tomorrow? I don't know.
It's supposed to
That's the
rain.
best I can do. Is
It's
it?
gonna rain good tomorrow.
And you'll see, all the water gets down by the bridge, and we have we're having washout problems there now. We're bringing in stone and gravel, last 2-3 months, and it's washed out again, so that's obviously an area that the road just rolls away. So that's why we want to, control that area too.
Yeah, I just think, we could be having a washout at their drive, we should be creating a new problem with paving the road, fixing the road, but now the water's going somewhere else, down their driveway. And then
There's a small pond in someone's front yard. A couple ducks.
So,
I agree. Realistically, yes. So that's why we did a plan. So, we are overcutting. So our existing width is usually around 18, so we are cutting 20. So we are gonna have exposed 21 AA to catch some of that water on each side. So say your asphalt will be that wide, you will have exposed stone on each side to catch some of that water. But if you gentlemen would see, which I know I'm supposed to have the proper plans, you guys would see the steep, there's no way possible asphalt. The water's going anywhere to anybody. It's so dramatic, fellas, it's insane. When it comes to the asphalt, the main concern is to keep the water off the asphalt. So, and then what we came up with was to make a little spillway beforehand with some riprap to stop the water flow to go mainly to the bridge, because that would be too much water flow, because the bridge is the lowest part of the entire property, is that correct? So we want to eliminate so much water flow going to that bridge that we come up with a little plan to get the water flow up the side. But the steep, it's a steep, it's dramatic, it's insane, it's high, so the water is going to help. The asphalt is going to help the water roll off, especially with a 2% grade. It's going to keep it off the center. So I'd say maybe 10% is going to fall into the exposed 21 AA on each side, and then the rest is going to run down, and then we're going to have a little self-made spillway with an asphalt curb directing some of the water. I'd say maybe 60% of the water to go that way, leaving a little bit to go back to the bridge spillway.
Yeah, if I could, because I'm looking at this on Google Maps, the house I'm really worried about is this one right here. Because if it comes down there, it looks like we're really close to the road.
That was one of our main concerns
And
too.
that water comes down, and if you don't control it, it could end up.
Exactly. So that was one of our main concerns too, Steve. So that's where our asphalt curb is going to start. So on that.
Oh, so you're gonna do some curbing there? Okay,
Exactly.
keep it in the road,
Asphalt, So
okay.
that's gonna hold the water, and that's gonna flow the water directly past that house, pretty much to where the mouse is now, and then just on behind the bridge, on the left side of the bridge, not flowing to the bridge. So we're gonna try to channel 60% of that water to go to the side with some riprap underneath to the creek, and then leaving the remainder to go to the bridge.
Put that on your sketch too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't hear about the curb either. So these ideas, and I'm not trying to overcomplicate it, but, you know, sketch it out and show details, like,
Sure.
you gotta build it. Your crew's gotta use something to build it, so show us the details you got.
Okay.
And let me know if you need details on a spillway or something, and, you know, it can always be modified, but,
Okay, I'll get some.
I went and talked to that house right there, because it is the worst, and right now they got a lot of water getting in their house. So, they
That'd
were
be a good time to
all
fix it.
for us paving and putting the curbs there to help stop some of the water, because that first driveway is where it all just wants to go. It's right
now,
there.
does their yard drain to the road?
No, their yard drains to the creek, that creek runs right behind their house.
Okay.
Yeah, the house is really close to the road.
I never been back there, so I don't know. Am I allowed to drive back there? Look at it?
Pardon?
Am I allowed to drive back there?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
It's a
private
public road.
Oh, it's public?
I mean, well, UPS comes down
All right.
there, it goes down there, so.
I'll go drive it and look
Yeah.
at it.
It's not nice to drive down right now.
Yeah, Amazon's there all the time.
So is the applicant clear with what we're requesting? I just want to make sure.
More detailed plans with specifications as far as width, length, dimensions. We need riprap specifications. We need width of asphalt along showing exposed 21 AA to catch some of the water. We need asphalt curbing detail.
And where it's gonna be, where the curbing is gonna be.
Exactly where it starts, where it is. Is there anything else that I missed?
And the maintenance agreement, a copy of the maintenance.
Maintenance agreement. As far as specifications for depth of asphalt, as far as 4 inches at 2 layers needed. Pretty much
Yeah, I think we have
a
that.
professionally engineered blueprint without a professionally engineered.
Right.
Pretty much need
It doesn't need an engineer's sign off.
Okay, yep, just want to make sure you're clear. Is there any other questions that we have?
No, I think that's good.
Nice meeting you, gentlemen. So I'll get this and I'll get this, Ross, I'll get this to you as soon as possible, maybe. for the weekend.
So, perfect. I'll look for it. That takes care of old business item number 3. So, moving on to new business. New business item number 1. Gager zoning map amendment. I think I said the name wrong. If not, let me know. Gager. Gager, okay, all right, cool. So Zach, I don't know if you want to start or go through your review.
I'll run through it quickly, best I can. If there are any questions, feel free to ask me. So this is a zoning map amendment. The request is from the current FR farming residential to the RE rural estate residential district. The idea is it's anticipation of a future division of the property, but the division and all the elements of that will be reviewed at a future time, either during revision or for zoning permits. For zoning map amendments, it is an ordinance amendment. This body makes a recommendation. It's forwarded to Livingston County Planning Commission for review and comment, and then to the Township Board for final action. The property is roughly 17 acres. It has frontage on Foley and Runyon Lake. Let's see, it is within the residential natural resources preservation area. You can see on that map there most of the surrounding area. So this is where there's a little bit of weirdness in your master plan, which don't worry, all master plans have a bit of weirdness. So if you see the description there at the top of the page for residential natural resources preservation, it says minimum 3 acres per dwelling unit. In the proposed, that's consistent with the current zoning. The proposed RE district, the minimum lot size is 1 3/4 acres. However, when you go to table 20, comparison of future land use classification and zoning districts in your master plan, it says that RE rural estate is the comparable district with the residential natural resources preservation area. Does that make sense? One part says 3 acres, the other part says 1 3/4 acres. As far as zoning, they're the summaries of the two districts. They're very similar, except for the size of the lots primarily is the big difference there. See the proposed map on the top of page 5. So it would be already similar to the properties north of the road. And I'm not sure why your map shows the road going across the highway. It does not, unless you're Dukes of Hazzarding it.
It goes underground.
Okay. As far as potential uses, so whenever there's a zoning map amendment, it opens up all of the potential permitted uses or special land uses in that district. There are no differences in permitted or special land uses between these two zoning districts, so there would be no change. Those two tables are very boring on page 5 and 6, but it's good to see them. As far as developmental standards, there are some differences, or would be some differences. The lot area the minimum lot area would decrease from 3 acres to 1.75 acres. The minimum lot width from 250 to 200. Front yard setbacks down from 150 feet to 100 feet. Side yard setbacks decreased from 30 feet to 20 feet. The other standards, the rear yard setback, the maximum lot coverage, and building height would remain unchanged. As far as surrounding properties, you see it's a mix of rural estate to the north, and then the others around it are currently the farming residential. For zoning map amendments, it's a little different from variances and site plans where the criteria are meant to be guides as opposed to they all have to be yeses. The guides or criteria you have is consistency with the goals, policies, and future land use map of the master plan. As we noted there, it's kind of in that fuzzy area where it's consistent in part with the master plan and not consistent in part, which is a challenge, but it's not, for example, someone asking for a half-acre lots. So it's within the range of what your master plan is calling for. The next is site compatibility. That's basically, would the rezoning be compatible with the size of the lot? With the nature of it. It appears to be. A lot of the specifics about groundwater and percolation for on-site septic fields will be done as part of individual review, but generally 1 3/4 acres is large enough to accommodate those unless you have really bad soils. Return on investment. This is a bit peculiar one, but one of the questions asked is whether or not someone can make money with the property with any of the uses that are currently allowed. We don't have any information on that. You could split it and develop houses, but there'd be fewer housing sites possible. Compatibility with surrounding uses. So the proposed zoning map amendment could theoretically allow for up to 40% increase in the number of lots there. Again, I say theoretical because when you do geometry, it reduces that. Now that sounds like a really big number, but when you take that geometry into account and the relatively small size of the property at only the 17 and change acres, it's not that large an increase from what you could do. So even though there will be some more trips, it's not likely to have a significant negative impact. Similar thing for infrastructure. It would allow for additional dwelling sites, but it's not likely to be a significant impact due to the small size of the property. Demand. We don't have specific information for demand on housing sites in this township. We know there's huge demand for them throughout southeast Michigan. There's not enough of them available in the market. Previous submission, to the best of our knowledge, there hasn't been a zoning map amendment submitted for this property in the past year, and we have not been able to determine any other factors. That's what we've got. One last thing, because this has not been submitted as a conditional zoning map amendment, the township can't place conditions on it. So sometimes if someone wanted to do it to a commercial zoning district, a couple of the commercial uses may make sense, but not all of them. So an applicant will say, we want it commercial, but it's going to be limited to these uses or not these uses. So it's a straight up zoning map application. No conditions can be placed on it.
Thanks, Zach. So, I don't know, Zach, if you'd like to speak about what your plans are for it, I know it's not, right now, the application is for amending the zoning map.
No, it's.
But if you'd like to, that'd be good help.
Take a vote in, or?
Yeah, if you could, it helps. If you want Zoom here, I think.
Kevin Gager, 10377 Center Road, just down the road here, resident. Did you, were these exactly these included, or were these included in the package? Okay. Just to be transparent, everything, I tried to show you what my intentions are with it, so there's no ambiguity about what's gonna happen there.
Yeah.
You know, as you noted, it says a 40% increase in the number of lots. Yes, would be going from 5 lots to 7 lots. It's a matter of 2 lots. And I think it's a little misleading is, while I am looking for the RV zoning, when you look at the net acreage, the average lot size is gonna be 2.53 acres. So really, it's a 15% reduction in the lot size, not a 40% increase in the number of lots, although it is going from 5 to 7. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear that it's not like we're rolling out these houses out here or whatever like that. It's just, but I'm a builder and developer, a local resident, live out here, and I'd like to do a project here, a small project here, 7 homes. That's the reasoning behind it. Yeah, I can do it with, they go and talk to the reasonable rate of return and all that stuff. Yeah, you can do it with 5, but by the time we plat it, bring all the electricity utilities in, et cetera, to keep these, the price point down a little bit, it makes more sense to be 7. And like I say, 2.53 acres is not that different from 3 acres, in my opinion. Maybe it's a hot button or a topic that, you know, everybody's real adamant it's got to be 3 acres, but developing the site, it's a difficult site from the standpoint of by the freeway. It's not super developable, desirable from a residential standpoint. Therein, like I said, trying to do 7 there makes more economic sense than trying to do 5 and recoup a profit out of it, so to speak. So, any questions you could have? Like I said, I'm trying to be real transparent. That's why I included all this stuff. While it is just a rezoning, here's the plan. This is what you would see when it, you know, comes back to you at some point.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it.
Take a seat.
Yeah, that's fine. We might have questions, but you don't have to stand for that. Thanks.
Do we have to set a public hearing for this?
Yep. Yeah, you can determine at this time if it's adequate enough that we can schedule that.
I can send more information and we would ask.
Yep. We want it to be substantially complete before we actually hold the public hearing, but yeah, it depends on what you think right now. You can recommend that I schedule it. I can schedule it for next month if you feel it's ready.
I'd recommend it. This seems pretty cut and dry. I mean, until we have the public hearing, we're not gonna know if we get any negative comment from the neighbors around there, right?
Right.
So you haven't heard anything?
No.
Because there hasn't been the public hearing, so.
It's not a public hearing, but the application's been published on the website. Sometimes we hear feedback ahead of the public hearing, but we are required by statute to.
But when you let the neighbors within 300 feet now, then that's when you
Potentially. It is required. This is just the first introduction. Yeah, this is just the introduction. It gives you a chance to review the information that's been provided, review Zach's review, and provide direction to the applicant. And then you can also direct me at this point if you feel it's ready to schedule the public hearing.
Now, are these site condos?
No, they're replatted subdivision.
Platted
Yeah,
subdivision.
everybody owns, yeah,
Okay.
no second.
Platted subdivision,
I beg your pardon?
land division,
Well, it'll be 3 land divisions and then 4 platted lots.
okay. Plats are kind of rare, that's why I'm a little shocked.
Beg your pardon?
Plats are a little rare.
No.
these
Oh,
days.
they're real rare, but in this case, on a public, everything's on a public road, it makes no sense to do site condo. Then everybody's tied together, and then you got the association, I've done them both ways, and it's just, I actually prefer the plat, to be honest, especially in a situation like this, where you're on a public road, there is no private road, there is no,
I'm glad there's still people at the state office that process plats, though.
Still takes them 2 years.
to me, it's just a cleaner set. Everybody owns their own parcel, they're on a public road, they're not tied to their neighbors, their mortgage isn't tied in with a master deed and all that stuff, you know, well, you know the drill.
I just, it's a welcome sight to see 1.75 minimum lot area compared to what we've seen other proposed developments, half acre or less.
A little less, yeah.
You know,
This is actually.
This could be 2.5, really.
2.5, yeah.
But we're only talking about the zoning
Yeah.
here, right now, so.
But the way you're gonna split this up,
Way he's gonna split it,
it can only go this, I mean, you couldn't change it any other way.
Yeah.
And meet the lot widths and that, so this.
No,
this
he
is
could,
kinda
he
way
could
it's gonna
have,
be
he
set.
could split it in half and have one big lot and have a bunch of smaller 1.75 acre lots. But, the minimum for this, for the zoning that we're talking about here is 1.75. And I think that fits in great with the rural nature of the township.
Especially if you look at, I mean, you can see that
Yeah.
parcel extremely well from the highway, so I think your comment that, you're not gonna build $800,000 houses out there.
That's what it is.
Looking at the highway.
The price point's gotta be, obviously, entry level of this market, so to speak, but still, quality, nice houses, not modular or anything like that.
This one here.
Yeah, what was that? You spoke like an issue or something with master plan and future land use match. Was there an inconsistency or something? And I'm only thinking of it, like, is something we need to correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So one section of your master plan that describes the different areas, describes this area, the natural resources residential preservation area, as having minimum lot sizes of 3 acres. That's just kind of the big fuzzy 6-inch brush that it's painted with. Another part of the master plan, which is required by state law, is kind of a comparison of future land use map areas to current zoning districts or potential zoning districts in the future. And in that case, it says the corresponding zoning district with this area is the RE, rural estate residential, that has 1.75 minimum. So as any good master plan would, it says one thing, and then when you get comfortable, it says another thing.
So then what about this 2 to 3 in table 18?
Where?
Table 18 on, it's page 97 of the master plan. It's on PDF I have. It's on page 131. But the,
I'm gonna make one comment too. I read through the whole thing, talked to Ross and everything about it. I wouldn't have even brought it if I didn't think that it fit with the master plan. When I read that the master plan was RE, and I had an informal meeting with you, and it's like I said, I'm not trying to push anything through or anything like that. If it fits, great. It appears the master plan calls for it. That's why I'm here. That's cut and dry, pretty much.
is that because you're on me?
No, my internet box is not interneting.
Want me to show you?
Yeah.
Is that what that was? Is 2 to 3 residential?
Yeah, there's another one in there.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
So yeah.
Additional issues where there's conflict.
Yeah, this is consistent with the description.
Okay.
The kind of the big fuzzy description of the area.
So we gotta fix that.
Yeah, table 18 and 20.
Well, we are gonna be revisiting the master plan.
Yeah.
It's right now, I think if I'm understanding correctly, the planning commission can determine whether or not they believe it to be consistent with the master plan. So I don't know, I mean, do you think?
Oh,
we
not,
can
I'm
actually-
not saying before this, I'm just saying at some point we want to
Oh,
fix
yeah,
that.
yeah, that's something.
That was
needs to
more
be
like a
decided.
side.
Yeah.
But, and to that point, this is another one of those things, if we determined that, hey, it means 3, then we could potentially open ourselves up, right? Because there is potential to say, hey, I interpreted this meaning 1.75, as Zach mentioned, it's just a point that we should
So
address
zoning
it
ordinance
in the future.
regulation,
Yeah.
the zoning ordinance is referencing the master plan.
Yeah.
And the problem lies within the master plan.
Yeah.
So it's not like the previous example that we had with the last PUD application where we had conflict between a table in the zoning ordinance and a table in the master plan. There's just 2 different areas in the master plan where there's conflicting information.
Okay.
So there's not a whole lot to do to correct it at this point.
Good context for us. Thanks. Do we have any other items we want to see from the applicant or questions at the moment?
Want me to schedule a public hearing?
Yeah. I think so. Does anyone object to that?
I'm in agreement with that. Is that something we officially vote on?
No, I just don't want
Yeah.
to rush it if someone has comments or questions, that's all. All right,
So Russ, the next process, Mr. Glazier, is to request a land division, correct?
It would need to follow the rezoning. So
Follow
the
the
next step
rezoning.
in this process would be the public hearing. Following the public hearing, the planning commission could potentially make a recommendation. It's then forwarded to Livingston County Planning Commission for review. And with the outcome of your recommendation and their recommendation, it's forwarded to the township board for a final decision. Then with that final decision, assuming that it is approved, then it would be to apply for a land division.
Okay.
And also concurrently a plat itself.
thanks, Ron. Anything else, guys? This one? Okay, we'll move to calls to the public. Is anyone here, public comment this time?
I got someone on the Skype.
Okay, all right, well, go in the room first. No, go ahead, if you could, if you could please go up to the podium.
Sure.
It helps the people online here. This is
The
good.
person that raised their hand might be somebody that I'm asking a question for.
Okay.
Janice Stevenson, Sleepy Shores Path, Running Lake. And my concern is about the asphalt from Carmer down to the bridge and where the runoff is going to be going. Is it going into that creek and then we're going to be putting more silt and what have you into Running Lake? I mean, maybe I didn't understand all of what they were saying as far as what this riprap is. Is that going to be something that'll slow the water down because it actually goes through my sister's property and she already has flooding of that creek when it rains. And when she built, she had put in a retaining wall so her house wouldn't fall into that creek.
Yeah.
So, it's not my property. I don't live right by it. I'm on the other side of the lake. But I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so, do you have any more comments, or is that it?
No.
Okay, so that was why the commission asked for them to provide a better plan to our township engineer, to, specific to what John asked,
Yeah,
to
that is a
what's
concern.
happening with the runoff.
Soil erosion, that is a concern, and I think if they fix this road properly, they would have less sediment going down there, because they talk about dumping gravel trains there every year.
Right.
And, the unpaved surface, eventually that silt from that is getting down there. There's probably evidence of that at that property. Now, if they pave this road properly and control the drainage properly, then it should work good. We have less erosion.
Improvement.
Improvements.
Or
no worse than current.
Well, and
Likely better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was wondering, if it would be more of an improvement, because I mean, right now, when that creek is flowing, it is over her property.
The water level?
The creek
Yeah, I mean,
overflows, yeah.
We can't, let's.
No, I was just
Probably-
wondering,
yeah.
is it gonna make it worse, or, like you said, it's gonna be an improvement?
It's something that we can speculate on as a planning commission, but we defer to the engineer to review, but, yeah, thanks for your
so
questions. and
most of
comments.
the water is probably still gonna get there, but hopefully it's gonna slow down and get there and not erode, take silt with it, so we'll review that, and we'll take that into consideration.
Okay, I see a hand raised.
Somebody's got their mic too close to the speaker.
Not like that was a bunch of feedback.
Okay, so.
Is there?
Yep, if you're,
All right, I wanna know what's going on with the grocer. You know, they came in for their application to add on over there. And it was very apparent that they got a lot of feedback from the community, and they were made aware of non-conforming issues that we could see. I did make my concern to Ross, and I did put it in writing. It's just like Indiana, we've seen some others in the township, you guys weren't on the board, that did this and went on and just continue to go on in their non-conforming ways. And I believe that there's many others, things that I can't see there because of the walls. I do know there's an elevator there, and there's piles of gravel. I mean, they're turning the place into a gravel pit. And, trucks going in and out of there, I just don't think they're conforming. I'd like to get some kind of feedback, what's going on. I think maybe Ross and some board, planning commission members should go in there. Like I said, my complaint, I've heard about a lot of ecological problems there. And I think there's a lot of people in the community that you heard their complaints. That we need to really research this and get some answers. I mean, we want answers. Go ahead.
So we received your complaint, enforcement's been initiated, part of that is investigation. We have one obvious compliance issue, which would be the paving of the driveway approach, which they're currently in the process of addressing. That will likely be resolved within, hopefully, this next month. That's going to be considered a minor amendment to the existing site plan. As far as other potential compliance issues, like I said, there's an investigation that's ongoing. We'll need to look into that, but our procedure is not to get into details of that during public forum.
Okay.
It's a private issue, but.
That's fine. Okay, yeah, my concern is a lot of ecological, we can't see what's going on there. And I think having those walls around there.
My recommendation is if you do have specific environmental concerns, would be to contact the agencies responsible specifically for that. As far as the site plan specific issues, that's what we're investigating, but if it goes beyond that, right now it's speculation. We don't have any evidence of any environmental spills, hazards, contamination. No such evidence has been provided, nor is there reason to believe that anything does exist. But you are more than welcome to file complaints with additional agencies if you have concerns above and beyond what we can investigate.
So our township officials don't care what they're doing, and they don't really talk to the state agencies to make sure that things are done properly there?
If there was any official report, then yes, absolutely.
Well, who's responsible?
Right now, it's all speculation.
Yeah, well, Ross, what's your job? That's your job.
Yep, it's compliance with the site plan and the approvals, the terms of the special land use.
I mean, nobody's that stupid to look up the driveway, see tires laying all over the place, seeing all the oil tanks around the building, and know they're not using it as a garage and to service all those trucks in there. Mr. Wood's there, he has to comply, and I don't think he's got the proper licenses or the permits to do it. You should have them on record.
Yep, and we do have the approvals on record, and we do have details of what he is permitted and what he is not permitted to do on site.
From the state, from the regulatory, for the oils and whatever kind of fluids he's possibly dumping out in that building?
Possibly dumping out is one thing, dumping out is another thing.
Exactly.
You need to understand that you can't just speculate on everything and go after somebody.
And so when it's,
Hold on, Scott, hold on.
when it comes to complex enforcement, if there are different hands involved, the township cares, but they don't regulatorily care. And by that I mean if someone is doing something that requires an Eagle permit, that's Eagle's enforcement bailiwick. The township can't come in with a stick and do that. I had a very similar, very sad situation when I was working in Indiana. We had a confined dairy feed with 900 head of cattle. I know that because one day I had to go out there and count the heads of cattle. And the township was in charge of how many cattle could be there, where's the barn, that type of thing. The state was in charge of how do you handle the manure, how do you handle the dead animals, how do you do all these technical things. We kept getting calls about they're spreading manure when they're not, their lagoons are overflowing, and we're like, we can't do anything about that. Here's the number for the state person. And in that case, the state never actually got to do a full inspection. The neighbors finally did get upset and called the EPA and dinged them for 100 violations of federal law. It was more than 100, but that's the nice round number that I remember. And we cared. We felt for them because we could smell it when we went out there, but we didn't have any levers to pull or enforce on that. So there are things that the township's concerned about, but they don't have the ability to do enforcement against.
Okay. Thanks, Ed.
So I gotta get a hold of Boo for that?
What was that?
Who do I gotta get a hold of?
Eagle. Eagle would be the first start. Yep.
They do all the regulating on businesses like that?
They would be my first stop for environmental concerns.
All right, not to sound like I'm picking on them, across the expressway, the farm across the expressway while I'm on here. And it's been there for 100 years. It's the old Hoover farm. And I'm sure Ross, it's right down the road from the township. It's getting to be a damn, part, I don't know, is it a salvage yard? All the cars and everything, just piled up right behind that farmhouse. You know which one I'm talking about. Ross?
It's against policy to discuss specifics,
Okay.
but we do have a complaint on file and enforcement has been initiated. In fact,
Okay, yeah,
enforcement
that's
goes
good.
back many, many years. But it's not until recently that we did receive a complaint, and we are taking action on that.
Like I said, that's just all machinery and trucks and cars rotting in the ground.
Yep, they are in violation of the beautification ordinance. It's clearly.
Yeah, all right. I just think that's getting more ridiculous over there every year. All right, guys, we have happy Easter.
All right, thank you.
You too.
Thank you, Scott. All right, any other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll
Move we adjourn.
move to the next workshop meeting. I think we're almost there. We're almost there, Kurt.
Get a little bit.
That's the chair not recognizing the motion right there.
We'll go to the, I think it would be next Wednesday at 6, and the plan would be.
Do we want to focus on master plan
Master
discussion
plan.
primarily?
Yeah, I think.
I will not be in attendance for that one, but we will have Marion here.
Yeah, and then I don't think there's any other items that would be ready for them.
Yep.
Anything else, Ross? You're aware of? Nope. Okay, so next item is adjournment.
There's a motion on the floor.
To adjourn.
Support? Support.
Sorry.
No.
Sometimes you have to push.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Now, one thing I'll offer, I don't know what the capacity is at this current time, but
So they-
somewhere in Carlisle, Morgan's, we have people who just do code enforcement. So if you guys are getting buried.
Well, that must be scary.
Not quite.
Okay.
It's fairly minimal. There's rarely any issues. I do appreciate that, and if
Yeah.
there are
Well, but it-
continuing
it-
issues to where we need assistance.
Did that end?
Yeah.
It's too slow, Ross.
No, but what's